What's up, friend? I'm Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas, and this is the Grow Your Video Business podcast, the show created for videographers to help you build a better business, make a bigger impact, and enjoy the journey. Maybe even fall back in love with your business. If you've been doing this for a while, it gets crazy in here. You know what I'm saying? In today's episode, you're going to hear Jake's story, how he went from public access TV to building $1 million video studio. You're going to learn his secret to success, something that you can easily do in your video business too. And lastly, what would you do if you got audited? It just sounds like not fun at all. You're going to hear some great tips on how to build your business in a way that is ready for something like that, because Jake was audited and he shares his journey there. If you want to meet and network with other video business owners, make sure that you join our free Facebook group where you can post questions, you can post some of your work, you can get feedback on your work. You can also find people, network with other people that you could contract and partner on projects. So you can do that if you go to the Grow Your Video Business Facebook group. You can do a little search on Facebook, find it there, or if you just type in studiosherpas.com/Facebook, it'll forward you over to that Facebook page. So the community is built for you. It's here for you. It's free for you. So go join and make some friends and grow your video business that way. All right, let's hear a word from our sponsor, and then we'll get on with the show. Thanks again for being here. If there was one thing that could have ended my business 17 years ago, it would be because of the numbers. I hate accounting, taxes, W-9s, W-2s, W-40s, spreadsheets, all of that stuff. And I hate it mostly because I'm afraid of it. I'm just not great with numbers. If this sounds familiar, or if you're so new in your business that it's not even on your radar yet, you need Core Group. Core Group can help you create financial systems and tax strategies that you need so you can grow profitably, and they've been doing this for over 20 years. They become an extension of your team so that you can stay in your lane of expertise and then lean on them to help guide you along the way. For me, having a team of experts in my corner to help keep track of our books and just to make sure that we're budgeting for taxes appropriately, to have an actual strategy for our taxes and our accounting is priceless. And it allows me to sleep easier at night, knowing that I don't have to be an expert in that arena. If you want to avoid surprises in your video business, and you want experienced help building a plan for the future that you want, both professionally and personally, head over to studiosherpas.com/core for more information. And when you're ready to set up a free consult with them, make sure to mention Studio Sherpas for a special discount too. Got your back. Get more out of your accountant. Go to studiosherpas.com/core. What's up, friends? Welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today, joining me is my friend and filmmaker, Mr. Jake Sturgis, who is the founder and CEO of Captivate Media, all the way in the state of Minnesota that sometimes people confuse with Michigan. So people are like, oh,
yeah, I don't get that.
Well, MI in Michigan, like the abbreviation, people,
I suppose.
Yeah, that's where that is. So anyway, Jake, I'm so glad. It's long overdue that you are on the show and that we get to hang out here. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to spend this time here talking to you today.
I forgot to read your epic bio too. Jake started with video in high school, where he had a public access TV show that never. Never caught quite. Never. Oh man, I can't talk. Never quite caught on like Wayne's World. I appreciated that.
Yeah, for anybody who's younger than a certain age,
yes,
hopefully, or older than a certain age, Wayne's World probably will resonate with you. Others, younger people, I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're like, that's a boomer thing. It's my kids. Anyway, Jake, give us a picture of what is the kind of stuff that you are working on today in your video business.
Yeah, so we work primarily with K-12 schools and education and companies that serve the education market. So right now, a lot of our stuff is around enrollment for schools, because with the pandemic, there's just been a lot of students and parents making other choices than their traditional public school or private school that they've been to. And for schools enrollment's really the lifeblood for how they operate, because every student brings in a certain dollar amount. And if you don't have students, you don't really have a school, and you've got to lay off teachers. And there's a lot of snowball effects that take place with low enrollment. So a lot of our work, is around enrollment right now, and really helping schools communicate some of those differentiating factors that makes their school unique. And video has been a really popular choice for many schools this past year, with shutdowns and just parents and students not being able to go and tour schools like they have in the past. They've got to use video to do that. And we are the company that we want schools to choose when they are doing those types of videos.
Yeah. Speaking of schools, I hired my 14-year-old son to edit 2 videos for the local elementary schools for their talent show on the PTA, and they're like, oh, we could do a video. That's a great idea, Ryan. So anyway, I hired my son to do it. Well, I'm going to lay him off.
How did that turn out?
I mean, he had opportunity to make like $600 total.
Whoa.
And he did not take full advantage of it. So he got me, maybe 60 to 70% of the way through each of the edits, but then Dad had to come in and save the day and deliver. I was up one night 2 weeks ago till 1 a.m. editing this video. I'm like, oh man, it's been a long time since I've been editing a client project at 1 a.m. Anyway.
A couple of years ago, we had a school reach out to us like a day or two before graduation, and a student was supposed to be editing this video that was integral for the graduation ceremony. And he's like, Jake, you got to help me out. And so, it was another one of those late night things. And honestly, students can be part of our competition, because many people in schools are like, well, can't we just get like a high school student from the video production class to make this? I'm like, you could, but it really depends on, how good of a product you want, and how important it is to have it done on time. And when they're volunteers or not getting paid a whole lot of money, people have different priorities and prioritize things differently. And many times those are learning experiences for the students, but it's hard to be an adult on the other side having to clean up the mess and know the impact that could happen if that deadline's not hit.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Which actually makes me think, I had a conversation yesterday with this client who they said, hey, we want to hop back on a call. We had a discovery call last week. We want to hop back on the call because we talked to our client, because they're kind of like an agency. And we got on the phone with them yesterday, or on a Zoom call, and they said, hey, so there's this other production company that is bidding on this job too, and they bid half of what you guys bid. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, and they're going to include talent and makeup and like all this stuff. And I'm like, okay. They're like, so, we just wanted to see what you thought about that. And I'm like, well, I think that's an incredible price. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. I mean, if you can do it for half of the cost, like what's stopping you? And they're like, well, they're like a marketing agency too, so we think they're going to make money on the back end with this, they're going to promote this stuff, and so that's where we think they're going to make up some of the work, or make up some of the loss of the, not charging as much. I'm like, okay. And they're like, so I'm like, well, if that's your deciding factor, then like go with, like, if money is the thing, like go with them. And then the one guy, it was 2 people. It was like this guy and this gal, and he's like, but I really liked your approach. You guys are going to do this workshop, and it just seemed like a little bit more organized. And I don't know, these other guys, maybe I don't know if they're too young, and I'm just like listening and like letting him kind of talk himself into. By the end of the conversation, they both were like, yeah, I mean, we totally want to go with you. I was not convincing them to go. I was convincing them to go with the other. Anyway, just kind of made me think, like, yeah, there are those situations where, sometimes, a lot of times, cheap has a price, right? And most of us can't afford to pay it. That's a line from my friend DJ. Because the time fixing and correcting, and I saw somebody else in our community posting a Facebook message. I think it was Jeff Pickett had posted, client hired somebody, or maybe it was Larry, I don't know. They hired somebody else for cheaper, and then they ended up coming back and just saying like, hey, can you fix this, because we made a mistake going with the cheap people.
Well,
Anyway,
I think that's, I mean, and having a process and being able to kind of show your value during that pre-production process, that's why that's so important. So when a client does get another bid and maybe they don't have everything as well articulated or lined up as you do or as you present, that can mean getting a deal and getting more money than what they might be paying somebody else.
Yep.
Because you can show that you understand it, that you get this, and there's that feeling of trust. And the more that I work with clients too, I mean, part of it is we forget that part of that is it's how much time they need to be spending on the process, and they may want to spend just a little bit more money if it means they don't have to be as hands-on and they know that this process is going to be taken care of by somebody else, and that they don't have to step in and micromanage and take care of all these details that the other people might be cutting corners with, that the client may or may not want to take on those additional responsibilities.
Yep, 100%. I mean, yes, there are some organizations that have like a marketing person or somebody who's done video that they want to get their hands in it. So they're like, yeah, let's get this, if you get this thing to this point, then we can take it from there, or let me speak into it a lot more. And then there's other companies that are like, no, we're hiring you to take it from start to finish so that we don't have to worry about it, because time is money. And if you can buy time, and that's one way to buy time, to be able to buy time, is to just hire people that aren't going to, come back, hey, another question, or just not be able to deliver exactly what it is that you want. And then you've got to spend more time working with them, and that costs a lot of money, and you don't get that time back.
Yeah. And honestly, like with our work, I wasn't kidding when I said our biggest, I mean, students are competition, and also like teachers and other people who work in schools who maybe they've done some videos on the side. Maybe they can use iMovie and put some stuff together. As I'm working with clients, I'm asking them about shelf life and how long they want some of these videos to last. And if it's going to be on the homepage of their website for 6 months, a year, or longer, you're going to want to bring someone like us in to help. Do we need to be helping shoot and edit every Facebook post or tweet? I don't think so. I'd rather have them spend their money in a different spot, which, maybe it's around some pillar content that we create, that they can then create some supporting content that they kind of do it more DIY style, but they still have those pieces that really matter, looking good, putting their best foot forward with their community, their public, prospective students and staff that may be looking to join that school or that school district, for them to be able to see that it's not just a bunch of third graders that we've got editing video around here, that we've actually got, we've got what we're putting out as a entity, as our brand, and what we stand for. It goes through the video piece, right? It's not just, we've got this really nice looking brand and great photography and great website, but all of our videos look like a third grader just edited them. We try and coach people through that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, when you, I think it was early on in your journey with Studio Sherpas, we had connected, and I remember going to your website, and I was blown away. I mean, I'm actually blown away a lot by the members in our community. But on your website, I loved how clean it was, how pro it looked and felt. But then also the thing that took me most by surprise was your just narrowed down niche. I was super impressed that you were talking to educators, you were talking to schools, and not just like, hey, we make videos for schools, but you had created like your own original content. You were showcasing different things that you're doing, and then this was also right around the same time that you guys started helping schools that didn't really know what they were going to do for graduations, right, last year. Yep. And like, how are we going to do in person? Like, we're not going to do in person, so how do we still make this a memorable experience? So anyway, what was it? I mean, a huge differentiator for you guys today is the fact that you have this very specific niche. You're not like reaching out to, the financial institutions or law firms or whatever. Like, you are, at least from your website, you are marketing to educators. What was the deciding factor for you to say, like, hey, let's, instead of being the video company that markets to everybody, let's take this school thing seriously? And so talk a little bit about that process, and then, like, how has it served you and your business?
Yeah, it's certainly been a journey for me. So I worked for 2 different school districts in the Minneapolis area before I started this business. And that's really where I discovered the need and kind of to be able to narrow to this niche down. But my mom has always told me not to put all of my eggs in one basket, and like as a young kid growing up. So I always had like my mom's voice in the back of my head as we were looking at niching down to just education, like, what's this going to look like? And especially starting off, and not to say that we don't take other business, but you're right. Our website and all of our public facing pieces is certainly focused on education and companies that serve the education market. And that has really served us well. It certainly was scary at first, trying to like, okay, so if someone calls me from this industry, I'm going to say no on the phone, right? And it took me a while, and there's still, we do have clients outside of education, but our focus, and as we're talking with people, we've got our expertise, and that really served us well last year with the pandemic. We had our best year ever in 2020. And if you would have asked me that in early to mid March, I would have said, there's no way that we are going to have our best year. I remember walking into my office after my team had taken their computers home in early March, kind of after we started learning about social distancing, all this stuff. And I broke down in tears. Like I didn't know what the future held. And I was like, is this it? Is this the way that my business is going to end? Because schools were closing down, and I didn't see the light. I didn't see how are we going to make it out of this? How am I going to support myself? How am I going to keep this team in place? Who do I need to start letting go? And as we looked at things, and the great thing about schools is that schools are cyclical, and there are certain things that happen in schools every single year. And when you've got a niche, and when when things are happening with your clients, and you can start to anticipate and build for and predict those things before your clients even know that they need them, that can be really successful. So that was the case for me with graduations last year. We knew that schools were having a really hard time just figuring out distance learning, how they're feeding students that aren't able to get their school lunches each day. And we knew that there was going to be graduations and retirement ceremonies and other traditional spring events that schools have. And they're not going to have the bandwidth or capacity or knowledge to be able to pull something like this off. So we had never done a graduation video before. And people were asking, like, have you done this before? Have you done a virtual graduation? Like, no, this is like, this is all brand new. But I was able to work with my team, figure out a plan of how are we going to pull this off? What does this look like? We really became thought leaders, with others looking at us for advice and how to do this. I was on a couple different webinars with people within my industry, so different school communications people. And we did one in Budapest, Hungary, that they saw me on this webinar that I was doing. And we ended up doing schools throughout the United States. And there's that one international school in Budapest that we worked with. And that's all just, again, from niching down, knowing our clients, being able to really anticipate those needs, like I said, before they even know it. And that was our most successful. Those were our most successful months of business financially. Psychologically, I think my team is still recovering a bit from a number of long days and nights, but that really that got us through the pandemic. That was able to bring us that hope and that inspiration, and really position us well for the rest of the pandemic and the school year. And it's certainly exciting now with so many things opening up, and schools for the most part being back in session. And we're really able to get back. We're really hoping to be able to get back into classrooms like we used to, and be able to pick up, update a number of different videos that we shot with masks last year, and we'll be calling our clients very shortly to update those, since those are no longer necessarily going to stand the test of time with students wearing masks, and wanting to get at least some updated B-roll in those pieces that we've done over the last 12 months.
Great opportunity to upsell clients there.
Absolutely.
Hey, all that footage we have with people in masks, we got to do away with that. That's good. That right there is worth the cost of admission here for the podcast.
Yeah, look at all your projects if you've shot stuff with masks over the last 12 or 15 months, and call them up, see where they're at.
Yeah, man, I love that story, and I can relate to that, just that feeling of what is going to happen in this business, and just. But why didn't you call me, man? If you just called me, I'd encourage you. You didn't have to feel like you're in this alone. I would love for you to speak into that, the fear that comes with niching, where you even said it. You're like, yeah, if you go to Jake's website, you're going to see like all this language, it's all education language, video education. But you heard him say that they're doing other work. What percentage of other stuff are you doing? Is that like 10 or 20% of the amount of work that you're doing?
maybe 10%.
So, so many of us take way too long to pick a niche and to focus on that niche, because there's this fear of like, well, if I start focusing on a specific industry, then what if education, like, and there's a huge opportunity to make a lot of videos for them, but they don't see any of that on my website. So speak into that fear, how you process through that, and how would you encourage somebody that is wrestling with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's I think a lot of it has to do with growing up, and just like knowing who you are as a person, but also as a business. And, I remember back to like middle school, and where you're just trying to like figure yourself out and know who you are and all those things. And you'll like basically hang out with anybody if you can have friends. And that's, I think, I don't know, I'm 41, and hopefully I get wiser as I get older. But I think part of it I think is maturity, and just that realization in terms of, really treating it as a business, and really not living out of fear, I guess, and having that trust. For me, that's faith, and being able to just know that I'm going to be able to provide for myself, for my employees, for my business, if I have that faith. And the more that you dive into a niche, I think the more windows of opportunity that just present themselves. So when I started in schools, I had a fairly narrow view in terms of the types of videos that we'd be doing, the types of people that would hire us. And as you get going, and as you start to be able to build that word of mouth, and in certain communities, as you have that niche, you're going to get more referrals from people that, whether they're from schools or people that see your work, and things will just really start to feed themselves if you're doing a good job, and you've got work that your clients, prospective clients, are wanting to look at and invest in. And people want to hire an expert. And a couple of years ago, my kid, he broke his little pinky toe going down a water slide at a neighbor's house, one of those inflatable ones. And like, we were trying to find a pediatric doctor who specialized in like feet, and it gives you so much more trust as someone on the other side. Like if you know that this person has done this before, they know what to be looking for. They are the expert. And I think we forget about that sometimes when we're just trying to take in as much business as we can, that there are people that want to hire an expert in your area. And it's doing the work. Two, I think it is building those relationships and the trust with people within those, I'll call them verticals, where I am part of a number of different groups for schools, in whether it's school public relations people. We're involved with, there's a rural education group. There's a school board association. Like there are all sorts of like just spider webs that we've discovered in all of these groups and associations and trade groups and PTOs and PTAs. Like once you start getting into this, it just continues to grow.
Yeah, exponentially. You know, it's you know, I'm on the PTA at my kids' elementary school, and if there's a photographer, you know, they don't specialize, but if it's somebody that, you know, that I used in our wedding years ago, so there's trust built there. I, rather than like going on Google and like searching like local photographers, I will go to this wedding photographer and just say like, hey, I know your website is all like weddings or whatever, but I know you, I like you, I love your work, it's amazing. Would you shoot? Like, would you ever consider shooting? And then at that point, then that photographer can decide, say like, oh, no, not interested, too busy, whatever. Or like, you know, I do have some margin and I like working with you. We have this, you know, we like working with each other. So that's the part that I think a lot of us miss out on, or don't even consider, that even though you have a specialty, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get hired by people outside of that vertical or whatever. When the opposite of that, you know, when you don't have a niche, when you're a video company and you position yourself as a, you know, I'm a videographer, I have a video studio, then you sound like every other video studio that doesn't have a niche. So then there's just a way bigger pool of people to, you know, pick from, and then at that point you're competing on something different. You're competing on price, and it's like, well, do they seem professional? Like, do they have, you know, I mean, that's why we didn't get hired, or we're not getting hired by this agency, because we specialize in the kind of videos that they want to do. We're actually twice as much as the other company that even does some marketing, and we don't market ourselves as that. And you know, but like we have a process, and they said, oh, you guys just seem like organized and like you have a process, and like, there's just a lot more elements to consider there. So niching, like, if anything, what it forces us to do is to really figure out, okay, what do we do, whether or not I'm going to call myself an expert or somebody else, that whatever. It's like, what do we want to do, or what do we think that we do best, you know, or super what? Yes, there's other companies out there that probably do it better than you. But what do you believe that is your best, your superpower in your business? And let that be the thing that shines, and let that be the thing that you try to make yourself, your company, known for. And as you're building relationships with other people and networking and filming other events, and you're around, you're going to become known as that kind of video person, whether it's a niche or your style or whatever. And then you will come to mind a lot faster than just a general video company that doesn't have a differentiator. So there's that.
I've got to plug my camera in. It's about to die. Hold on one second.
Oh man, this is a sad, potentially sad moment. Dead cameras are never sad. Wait, always sad?
We should be good.
All right.
If I go blank, I'll just I'll turn on my webcam.
Okay. When you step back from your business and you look at, you know, how things have evolved over the last few years. 2014, is that when your business started? Is that when you officially started?
Your audio's cutting out. I couldn't hear the question.
Breaker.
All right, you're back now.
Check, test 1 2.
I think it's an internet thing. It's happened a couple other times, and I've just been able to kind of just like pick up what you've been saying.
I don't know if you see that little thing. There's like a text thing that says like your audio and video quality, something like it's not as good as what it actually will end up being. So I think that's probably part of it. Riverside. Okay, so rewind 2014 to today. Like how is your how have you grown your business from when you started to today?
Yeah, 2014, I left my job with a school district, and I remember telling my accountant that I was going to be going full time, and I had a business, like a part time. I mean, we did weddings and some other stuff to kind of as I got started. That was like 2002 to like 2014. But 2014 was kind of like, okay, I'm not doing weddings anymore. I'm getting out of that. But anyway, he knew my books and he knew how much money I was bringing in. And like, I'll never forget the look that he gave me when I told him that I was going full time. He's like, kind of like, what the heck are you thinking? Like, are you kidding me now? Is this like a prank? Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, I mean, for me, it was faith and taking that step forward, that not knowing what the heck was going to happen. And that was super risky and super scary. That moment when I decided that this is going to be my full-time job, and I just need to jump in and make that happen. So, for the first 10 months of the business, it was just me wearing, 27 different hats of shooting, editing, invoicing, sales, all that stuff. And it was a lot. And I realized that I couldn't really I'd get done with a project and be like, yes, finally done. And, with this, whatever project I was working on. And then like, okay, what's next? And I wasn't selling because I was shooting and editing and doing all of those things myself, and just didn't have enough bandwidth to be able to pull it all off. 10 months in, I got a retainer contract with the Minneapolis Public Schools, where it was a certain number of hours and dollars per month that they would be spending for the next year with me in terms of creating content. And like, all right, this is awesome. This is where I can bring on my first person, because I know that I can pay this person to do this work for the contract, but I also know that I can get them to do other work besides just that piece. So Jenna was my first hire in late 2014. She's still with me today. My first two hires are still with me today, which is awesome. And from there, I kept adding. My second hire was for motion graphic design. And that was something that I wanted for us to be able to differentiate the work that we were doing, both in terms of fully animated videos, but then also in terms of just our graphics, lower thirds, full screens, and those sorts of things. To not have that templated look, to be custom, to be real, to be able to manipulate things that we wanted to manipulate that sometimes can be tough to do in those templates. So that was my second hire, was a motion graphic designer. Two women, I may add, were my first two hires, which is not very conventional in the video world. Yeah. And those Morgan and Jenna are both still working for me today, which is awesome. They're
a female motion graphics designer is even more niche and fewer and farther between. I love that. That's great.
So from there, it's really been a journey of just slow. Somebody call it slow growth. I think it's just been steady growth in terms of business. And for a while, I'd been making decisions just on hiring, and that's always hard to know. Is this just like a blip in the radar in terms of our workload, or is this the new normal? And I've got kind of someone in behind the scenes in a COO role right now, who's really helping me analyze the data and looking at numbers, looking at our projects and how much time we're spending on things. And now, 7 years into the business, I finally feel like I'm flying this plane with instruments. My gut got me through the first 6 years, and I'd like to say that my gut did a pretty good job in terms of growth and making decisions and being profitable and all those things. But I knew that my gut could only take me so far with as the business grew, and we've got 10 employees now, and that I needed somebody to take on that COO role to really help me better understand the analytics, the data, and truly running the business. I like to think of myself as kind of like a hybrid between like a creative and like, a business mind. And, but I did not go to school for business. And that has been a really important, I think, part of our growth is just having some people that I can lean on, confide in. Sometimes it can be lonely as the owner of you may be able to relate of a small business, and they're just decisions and conversations that your wife can give some input to, but it's nice to have someone who really knows the business and isn't necessarily an employee either, and can kind of give you that type of advice.
I love that. That's great. Lots in there. So you have a full-time COO currently?
His name's Justin, and he does. He's on a contract, so he's not an actual employee, but he's on retainer with me.
Yeah, that's incredibly. I mean, I've shared this story so many times. I just was telling somebody the other day that in 2016, I think that's when we started. I had hired an assistant, quote unquote, and quickly she became our operations person, and then shortly thereafter we started applying the entrepreneurial operating system, Gino Wickman, Traction, all of that stuff into our business. And when we started applying EOS in our business with an operations person instead of me doing the operations, that changed everything. I mean, that allowed us to not just like we weren't hiring more employees. It was like we were like looking at all of the jobs in our business, and we're like, do we actually need this one? And do we need this? And so we became like, and we've become way more efficient over the years. So becoming more efficient means that we're more profitable. We're making more money.
Yep.
So that's like one of my favorite hires is people are thinking about, growing and scaling your business. It's like you can do all of the things, but if you also want to rest and enjoy some of the fruits of your labor, not having somebody that's in that role, or not having processes and procedures and people that are clearly assigned to own those things makes it really hard. I mean, it makes it really hard. But like you're saying, have somebody in that like leadership role that you can bounce ideas off of is incredibly helpful. And without that, it's like you're on an island unless you're a part of something like the Studio
That's
Showcase
right.
community.
And I think too, I mean, just as an owner, knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses, and knowing that, for me, one of the first things that I outsourced was my bookkeeping and my accounting. Like when I was bootstrapping it at the beginning and, counting every nickel that came in the door, like I was too cheap, and I was gonna do every invoice that came in, and every, tagging everything in QuickBooks, and like it was my least favorite work, and I hated it. I put it off, and but once I got to that point after we had started bringing on staff, it's like, okay, like I'm getting rid of certain things, and now it's finding the help and the support to help me be a better business owner, and acknowledging that like I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not the best at everything, and I need to be able to raise a flag once in a while and say, okay, I need some help with this.
Yeah, man, that's so good. I think I have PTSD from those days of like, you put the numbers and the financial stuff off because you don't want to do it. But the problem with doing that, it just like builds and builds. The stacks get higher, and there's more work to do, and then it just becomes exponentially more like anxiety. Oh man. I want to talk about this. I know we're kind of getting close to the end here, but I want to talk. In your pre-show notes, I'm like, ooh, this could be an interesting topic here. You had an audit in your business. Is this accurate?
I did.
This gives me the heebie-jeebies. I think we're much better positioned today than we ever have been if we ever do get audited. But I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, just thinking like, and this is a lot when we were packaging DVDs and mailing, and we had all these, like little things that we were like, I don't think we're supposed to be like paying tax. Are we supposed to be charging sales? So lots of questions, lots of loose ends, just kind of everywhere. And if you're, the government CPA or whatever listening, like, don't worry, I have a CPA, everything's fine. We're good. But there was just this like, this unknown of like, oh my gosh, like, the time I had a friend, actually, I'll just say I had a friend at a video company that had an audit, and it sounded like a nightmare. So anyway, share your story. What was that like, and how did you get through it?
So I think when people think audits, a lot of times people think like a sales tax audit, which I think is the most common type of audit that businesses like ours go through. Mine was an audit that was looking at my use of employees versus independent contractors, which may hit a little bit closer to home for certain people maybe listening today. And when I started, I was not set up for employees. I didn't have like a payroll system, and I didn't even know if I was going to be able to, make it through next Tuesday with business. And
I don't need no payroll system. What are you talking about?
Right. Like, I wanted, when I first started the business, I thought, okay, I'm just going to have freelancers. I'm going to keep my overhead low, and then I'm going to just have freelancers come in and out and be able to manage my expenses in my business that way. I found out that's a terrible way to run things, because so much of our business is relationship based, and I can't have a flavor of the week going in and meeting with clients, and they're like representing me as a business and and interacting with clients, and I couldn't handle it. And there was just so much work that had to be done, especially talking to people about education versus like the corporate world, and some of the differences and ways to approach things and talk about things. And anyway, someone had turned me on to the idea of more of a permalancer, where they have, they're working for you and kind of a certain number of hours per week or per month. And that gives them a little bit of stability in terms of work. And it gives you kind of somebody without necessarily having an employee. Long story short, the great state of Minnesota did an audit, and it was absolutely awful. And it was looking through all of my contracts that I had with employees, canceled checks, QuickBooks reports, tax documents. I mean, you name it. It was a total Roto-Rooter job of my financials. They did an interview with me. They did an interview with all of the people that I had contracted with to learn about kind of their role and to make this decision. And it took like 10 or 12 months. And it was one of those things that was just like every night when I went to bed, it was just hanging over my head. Like, what's going to happen? What are they going to find out? What's the damage going to be? I didn't think I was going to go to jail, but I thought that, I didn't know how much money I was going to have to back pay, because really the first, almost 2 years of the business was more like 1099 type stuff versus W-2. And I've learned that there are a number of different things that the IRS and the different states look at when making decisions on should this person be a contractor or an employee. And a couple of those big things is, whose equipment are they using? Are you telling them to be somewhere at a specific time to show up at 7:30 tomorrow morning to show up for a shoot? They're looking for control and what that looks like. And if it's more of an employee-employer relationship, or truly an independent contractor. Another thing that they look at is is what they are doing core to the service that you're providing as a business? So as a video company, if I hire someone to do video, that is core to what I'm doing, versus a bookkeeper who I'd be hiring that I'm not providing a bookkeeping service. So I can be hiring them to be able to do the work, as well as, am I paying them as a company or am I paying them as an individual? Because I think at least the state of Minnesota was looking at, should this person be eligible for certain types of benefits, like health insurance and other types of things that come common with employment. And it was awful. I don't wish it upon anybody. I obviously learned a lot through that whole process. When I'm hiring contractors now, I am hiring companies or people that have their businesses set up as companies, because that's telling the government that they don't necessarily need those benefits. Like, they've set the business up. They understand the risks. They're working with other people, not just your business, that they've got hopefully a legitimate business that they're doing work with. But that's something that I did not have a lot of clarity on, obviously, when I started my business. And I think a lot of people don't. They just kind of figure, well, I'll just hire freelancers and make this good. It's a risk that you run. Most people, I don't think, are as unlucky as me. I asked, like, did I get chosen for this? Or like, how did you find out? Like, well, that's another department. Of course, like, total government answer, like, that's somebody else's department who chooses who gets audited and who doesn't. But ended up having to pay a few $1,000s and slap on the wrist, I guess, in terms of making sure that I know the rules, and that if I do get audited again, they may not be so nice.
Well, somebody should tell them that you're on this podcast today talking about, ways that people can, things that they should be doing the right way, so that, this is a good check. So
this may maybe my community service part of the of the sentence.
It's so funny that I didn't realize for a contractor to tell them what time. It's like, okay, call time is tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. but you can show up whenever you want. Just know that call time is at 7:30 a.m. So just kind of show up whenever you want, because you're a contractor. What advice, anything that people should be thinking about outside of what you've already mentioned, so that if and when an audit does happen, are there any other ducks in a row that people should have or be thinking about?
Just keep your paperwork clean and, I guess, well organized. Looking through that, I think that if you do get audited, when you've got those documents, whether those are contracts with employees or contractors and what that looks like, insurance information from contractors and those sorts of things, to file those away in an organized way, with the hopes that hopefully you've never got to use those. You don't have to use those, but in the chance that you do, you've got those handy. And I think it presents yourself hopefully as a more legitimate business, and maybe it helps whoever's doing the auditing do their job more efficiently, or be able to see that what you're doing is a reputable business, and it's not just a bunch of handshake deals that don't have any paperwork attached to them.
Yeah, and then from where I stand today, having a company like for us, we use Core Group, and they are helping us organize and have clarity, so that if and when we do get audited, they've got the information, right? And they can easily, work with us. And that's another benefit to not letting the stuff pile up, week after week, month after month. And then it's like, okay, I'm finally, going to carve out the weekend to work on this stuff. But on a regular basis, part of our process is we do financial stuff. We work with Core to have them, ask us what they need and give that to them. And, we're being directed, rather than just kind of well, I think this is what I'm supposed to do, and I think this is how we're supposed to do it. But to have a team in your corner that's doing that, at least for me, it gives me that peace of mind for if and when we do get audited. I feel like I've got, a team that's going to help us get through that.
Yeah, and I think the IRS has a checklist of like 25 different things of the difference between an employee and a contractor. And that is what the auditors will use when making that decision. So I don't think you necessarily have to pass every single question. Certainly if you do, it's going to position you better. But like if you're checking the boxes off of all these things that make it look like it's more like a relationship with a contractor than an employee, that you're going to want to take a look at that. Like I know here, like a bunch of yoga studios just got audited, and because their instructors were using the equipment at the yoga studio, like the music, and using the space, and having to show up at a specific time to teach the class. So all these people that were independent contractors now have to be employees because of the rules.
Yeah, interesting. Well, before we go, I would love to know, for somebody who might be in that similar situation to where you were years ago, where you presented to your bookkeeper and said, "Hey, I'm gonna jump all in on this video stuff," and the bookkeeper was like, "You're not gonna make enough money." I love that story because I feel like it's like once you're in it. I mean, it took you a few months to find your rhythm, but once you're in it, like you're all in the money, it would come. Right, I think that's when we jump in full time. So somebody that's like contemplating and isn't ready to go all in, isn't ready to take a hit on their finances or whatever. How would you encourage somebody to maybe reconsider sticking it out longer in their full time job before they follow their heart and their passion of doing video?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is planning ahead of time. I mean, don't make this decision tomorrow after listening to this podcast and just expect to be successul. You've
Blame
got
Jake
to
if you do, and if it all fails. But
don't send me the hate mail, please.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of time to discern things, and then just to start planning. And what does this look like? What equipment would I need to get? What is this going to look like? What does my runway look like? Like, how much time do I have to really make this work? And when would I maybe have to start looking at pulling the plug perhaps, or just looking for additional sources of income? Mm-hmm. So I think that's big. And I think believing in yourself, as cheesy as that sounds. And, for me, I came to the realization that I've got a family that loves me, and they're not going to let me and my wife and my 2 kids live out on the streets and be homeless if this doesn't work out. That I will be supported. That I've got a support network of people that are going to be behind me and help me if when times get tough. And the first 3 months that I after I made that decision when I started the business were the 3 most difficult months of my life. And I thought that I had set things up. I thought that my phone would be ringing and emails would be coming in. I'd be getting all this business as soon as I kind of sent the email out to my network that I was going full time with the business, and that didn't happen. And I kept waiting for the phone to ring. I kept waiting. Coming home, like my wife was like, "So did anybody call today?" I'm like, "Don't remind me."
Yeah, don't ask.
And so I think part of it's just being prepared mentally for that. Yeah. And I think having a niche certainly helped me. I was able to do I did some pro bono work. 2 projects is all I did at the beginning to be able to showcase the work that I was doing, to be able to start to get that word of mouth thing going. Yep. And to be able to have, for people to be able to see the work that I'm doing and to be able to sell that. And I think that was really, really important. But it's, at the end of the day, I saw this opportunity, and I did not want to look at somebody else who made that leap and made the decision and was super successful, and always be looking in the rearview mirror and being like, that could have been me. I could have done that, but I didn't have the cojones to do it. And I can look and say that I did it now. Yeah. And maybe there's others that are looking at me and being like, that could have been me. That should have been me. And that's how I want to live my life. And I think it was a really good example for me and for my kids too, to be able to see that every once in a while, you've got to take our chance. You've got to take some risks in life. And there's a certain amount of just playing it safe, but then there's also something about knowing when to take those calculated risks.
Yep. Love that. Jake, this has been awesome, man. I'm so happy for your success and your story. Thank you for sharing it with us today. How can people follow you? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, captivatemedia.us is our website. I'm on Twitter _Jake Sturgis, and email jake@captivatemedia.us.
Awesome. Brother, thank you again so much for your time today. Any parting words, parting thoughts before you go?
No, I mean, just find a niche, find the work that you love doing where it doesn't feel like it is work. For me, it was education. For other people, it might be music videos. But I think when you can pair your passions with what it is that you're doing, and for me, making an impact on the lives of others, it's incredibly fulfilling. And like I said, like a lot of days, it doesn't even feel like work.
Love it. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, I am so happy that we made it this far in this episode. I appreciate you so much, and I am rooting for the success of your video business. If anything we chatted about resonated, or you feel like you could benefit from chatting with someone about making sure that you're prepared for an audit and that you've got some good systems in place for your finances, and even with your employees or contractors, if you're using them, consider calling Core Group, our podcast sponsor, but also the team that we pay every month to ensure that our production team, that we have someone in our corner to be proactive and apply their expertise in the world of taxes and audits and all the things that make my head spin. Go to studiosherpas.com/core. You can book a free call with them, no strings attached, and they will add a lot of value in that free discovery call. I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. What stood out to you? What are you going to do about it? Leave a comment inside of our Facebook group or shoot me a message. Would seriously love and appreciate hearing from you. And if you haven't downloaded my free workshop, I teach you how to make client meetings so much more efficient and also allow you to get a client's budget without being weird or salesy. You can get that free workshop at studiosherpas.com/budget. Today. You can get it today. Have an amazing rest of your day and your week, and I will see you on the next episode of the Grow Your Video Business podcast.